everybody, JenniferMaker here. It's a beautiful day to learn how to sublimate coasters. And not just one kind of coaster. We'll sublimate 4 different coasters to see how each type of coaster works and then compare the results. I'll even show you which coasters held up to some real-life testing. Now, coasters are very functional, but that doesn't mean they have to be boring, right? And with the right kinds, you can sublimate your own designs right on top of the coaster for a custom set, like my super cute winter animals. Now, it's important to know that you can't sublimate on just any coaster because there has to be a layer of polymer on the surface for the ink to infuse into, right? Plus, since sublimation ink is translucent, white coasters will give you the best results. So I found 4 sublimation-ready coasters to test with you. First, we have round ceramic Cricut coasters, which are marketed for use with infusible ink, but we can totally put sublimation transfers on them, and we'll try these out. And we have square Cricut coasters with a cork back, which are also marketed for Cricut infusible ink projects, but I know they're going to be awesome with sublimation. Now, these sublimation specific MDF car coasters, they have a cutout on the side here so you can pop them out of your cup holder when you need to. And then there's Neoprene sublimation car coasters, which have the same cutout, but they're softer, they're flexible. Now, each of these coasters has a polymer coating on top, so sublimation transfers should work on them, but the preparation and pressing processes are different for each one, so I'll show you all the steps for all of these. Now, to get your sublimation prints, you'll need a sublimation printer, of course, as well as compatible ink and some sublimation paper. Now, you can cut these out by hand, but I use Cricut's Print Then Cut feature to prepare the designs and then cut the circles perfectly. You can also use another cutting machine with similar capabilities, or just cut them by hand. Then I'll sublimate each coaster with one of my free designs to show you some tips to get the best transfers depending on which type you're making. I'm going to use the Cricut Easy Press, but you can use another flat heat press as long as it gets hot enough. You'll also need a few other tools and materials that you can find the links to in my blog post over at JenniferMaker.com/562. There's also a written version of the tutorial with lots of pictures if you prefer to follow along that way. And stay tuned to see how each coaster held up to some stress tests, and also which coaster I like the best. So, are you ready to sublimate some coasters? Let me show you where to get the free files, and then I'll show you everything you need to do this. Step 1. Get my free sublimation coaster designs. First, download my free designs at JenniferMaker.com/562. You can either download right from that link by saving the project, or download from my entire free design collection. To find it, look for Libraries in the red bar at the top, then click either Get a Password if you don't yet have one, or click Enter the library. Search the page for design number 562 and click the link to download the designs. There are 4 cute winter animal designs in the PNG folder: a fox, an owl, a penguin, and a polar bear. I'll show you how to resize them to fit a round coaster for use with the Print Then Cut feature in Cricut Design Space, and then make them with a Cricut Maker 3. You can, of course, use an original Cricut Maker, any Cricut Explore series machine, a Cricut Venture, a Cricut Joy Extra, or another machine with similar abilities. You can also use your sublimation printer software to size the designs and cut them by hand. I made them square, but I'll show you how to use them on round coasters without wasting ink. I used an AI art generator to create these cute designs, and then I made them even more awesome with image editing software. If you'd like to learn more about the process of using AI art design, because you can totally do this too, check out my workshop on creating and using AI art in your crafts ethically at JenniferMaker.com/AI-art. Step 2. Prepare and print your designs. If you haven't recently used your Cricut's Print Then Cut feature, you may want to calibrate your machine for the most precise cuts. If you aren't sure how to calibrate for Print Then Cut, check out my helpful video at JenniferMaker.com/calibration. If you're making round coasters, measure the diameter at the widest point. If you're making square coasters, make sure they're square by checking the height and the width and make sure that they're exactly the same. And if you're making car coasters with a cutout, measure the diameter across the full circle. On a blank Cricut Design Space canvas, click Upload and then Upload Image. Click Browse and select the PNG file you want to make. I'll start with the owl. Then select Complex and click Continue. We want to keep the background, so click Apply and Continue. On the next screen, select Print Then Cut Image and click Upload. If you want to make the whole set like I will, follow the same process to upload the other 3 designs. Find your designs in recent uploads and select each one. Then click Add to Canvas. PNG files often come into Cricut Design Space at different sizes, so always click each one to check how big they are. Resizing the designs depends on the coaster sizes you're making, so we'll practice with one of each. Let's put the owl on one of the square Cricut coasters. They're 3.75 inches square, so I'll keep the size lock icon closed and change the owl's width to 3.75 inches. And he's all set. Also, you may see a low resolution warning even after resizing your images, and if you do, don't worry, it's okay. They will print just fine at the size needed for the project. However, I don't recommend enlarging these images for bigger blanks. The other coasters are round, so we can adjust them now to save ink later. Click the Shapes icon and select the circle. Now let's prepare the penguin for the MDF car coaster. With the circle selected, make sure the size lock is closed and change the width to 2.5 inches to fit the coaster's widest section or your blank's size, and then press Enter or Return on your keyboard. With the circle still selected, click on the Operation menu and select Guide. Select the image and change the size to 2.5 inches for both the width and height. Click and drag your mouse over the guide circle and the image to select both. Then click Align and Center. With both layers still selected, click Slice. Drag the guide circle out of the way and delete the layer that has the corner edges from the image. Now your penguin is ready for the MDF car coaster. I'll put the polar bear on the Neoprene car coaster, so let's move him and the guide circle to an empty area. These coasters are a tiny bit bigger, so I'll change the circle to 2.6 inches in diameter to match it. If you drag the circle over the polar bear, it's clear we need to make him smaller to fit. This time, click the design and drag one of the bounding box's corners in toward the middle to make it smaller. You can drag the bear into the circle to check the progress until it's at the size you like. If any design elements you like are outside the guide, move the circle or keep adjusting the design size. Even though the background edges look white, there's still some colors that might be visible when we transfer it, so make sure the design completely fills the guide. I want him pretty big, so I don't mind if a little bit of the snow goes off the edges. A little bit will be lost to the cutout in the coaster too, but that's okay. With both layers selected, click Slice. Drag the guide circle out of the way and delete the layer that has the corner edges from the bear image. Now your polar bear is ready for the MDF car coaster. Finally, let's prepare the fox for the Cricut round coaster. This coaster is 3.6 inches in diameter, so change the circle to match. This time, select the design and the circle, then use Align and Center to bring them together and see the difference. Change the design's width to 3.6 inches, and then align them on Center again to recheck. That looks nice. A few leaves will go off the bottom, but that will be okay. Select them both, then click Slice. Then delete the layer with the image's corners and the guide since we're done. Now we're ready to make the designs. Step 3. Print then cut your coaster designs. Make sure the correct machine is selected and then click Make. On the Prepare screen, make sure your Print Then Cut mat's material size is set to 8.5 by 11 inches. Since we're going to sublimate these designs, turn on the mirror toggle too, and then click Continue. On the Make screen, click Send to Printer. Select your sublimation printer from the Printer drop-down menu. Toggle Add Bleed so the printer will add a little extra matching ink around the design's edges, so we have some buffer when placing them on the coasters. And turn on Use System Dialog for better control of your printer settings. You may need to minimize or move your Cricut Design Space window to see the Print Dialog window. Now, your screen may look different depending on your computer and your printer, but you'll want to set your media or your paper to an option like Premium Photo Matte, and then make sure your quality is set to best or excellent quality or whatever you need to do to get the best quality. Make sure the sublimation paper is loaded correctly into your printer, and then click Print. Let the printed design sit to dry so nothing smudges during cutting. The colors will be more vibrant after pressing, so if they look muted or faded right now, don't worry. Place the printed sublimation designs face up on a blue light grip machine mat with the top and left edges aligned along the mat guides. Put a piece of copy paper on top of the sublimation print and use a brayer to secure the paper to the mat. We don't want to smudge anything. Back in Cricut Design Space, select the light cardstock 65-pound setting with default pressure. Load the mat into your Cricut so the designs match the screen layout, and make sure the fine point blade is clean and in the clamp. Press the flashing button to begin cutting. They may look like simple shapes, but having your design shaped for the blanks is actually really helpful for alignment. Once the cutting is complete, unload the mat, flip it over onto your work surface, and gently roll it back to release the coaster's designs off the mat. Step 4. Sublimate your winter coasters. Before you begin any sublimation project, make sure you're in a well-ventilated area with a fan on or a window open. I'm going to use my Cricut Easy Press on each type of coaster, but you can use another type of flat press. My sublimation cookbook has information on times and temperatures and pressures to help you out. If you have manufacturer's instructions for your blank, I recommend you start with those. Project number 1, MDF car coasters. Turn on your Cricut Easy Press and set the temperature to 390 degrees Fahrenheit or 198 degrees Celsius, and set the time to 50 seconds. If your coaster has a protective film, remember to take it off first. Use a lint roller on the coasters to remove any dust or debris. Put a fresh piece of white cardstock on your pressing area, then place the MDF coaster blank face up on top. Add another piece of protective paper on top to avoid singeing the material. Preheat the MDF coaster blank for 5 seconds to remove excess moisture and let it cool for a few seconds. Now place your sublimation design face up. Once the coaster blank is cool, place it face down on the design. Rotate the coaster until the cutout shows a blank area of the design or a spot that you don't mind losing in the final look. Once it looks okay, carefully flip the stack over and make sure the design is centered on top. Use heat-resistant tape to secure the paper to the coaster. Tape near the cutout but not right on it, since that can cause the design to ripple. Place a piece of plain white butcher paper on top of the stack as blowout paper to catch any extra ink. Then press the stack at 390 degrees Fahrenheit for 50 seconds with medium pressure, or the setting that works with your tools and materials. When the time is up, remove the press by lifting it straight up to avoid ghosting or blurring. Allow the coaster to cool for a couple of minutes so it's not too hot to touch. Then remove the blowout paper, tape, and printed sheet to reveal the design. Project number 2, Neoprene car coasters. Set the Easy Press's temperature to 385 degrees Fahrenheit or 196 degrees Celsius and the time to 40 seconds, or the settings that work for your setup. Lint roll the coaster to remove any dust or debris. Put a fresh piece of white cardstock on your pressing area, then place the neoprene coaster blank face up on top. Add another piece of protective paper on top to avoid singeing the material. Preheat it for 10 seconds to remove excess moisture. Then let it cool for a few seconds. Place your design face up. Once the preheated coaster is cool, place it face down on the design. Rotate the coaster until the cutout shows a blank area of the design or a spot that you don't mind losing in the final look. Once it looks okay, carefully flip the stack layers over and make sure the design is centered on top of the coaster. Use heat-resistant tape to secure the paper to the coaster. Since this one isn't completely solid and can have some give, make sure the paper is tight on the coaster as you go. And then put the taped coaster face up on the cardstock so you're looking down on the paper's back. Place a piece of plain white butcher paper on top of the stack to catch any extra ink. Press the sublimation coaster at 385 degrees Fahrenheit or 196 degrees Celsius for 40 seconds with light pressure. When the time is up, remove the press by lifting it straight up so you don't get any ghosting or blurring, especially since this material is a little squishy. Allow the coaster to cool until it's not too hot to touch, and then remove the blowout paper, tape, and printed sheet to reveal the design. Project number 3, Cricut Square Coasters. The Cricut Square Coasters are a little different, so pay close attention. They are made of a hard material and have a cork backing. I follow the settings on the Cricut Heat Guide, which you can find at JenniferMaker.com/easypress. Remember, it's always a good idea to check if your blank comes with instructions from the manufacturer. Set your Cricut EasyPress to 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 204 degrees Celsius, and then the timer to 60 seconds. Use a lint roller to remove any dust or debris on the coaster. One bonus of the Cricut Square Coasters is that they don't need to be preheated. So just put a new piece of white cardstock on your pressing area with the square coaster face up on top. Place the sublimation print face down on the coaster. Make sure the paper is even around the coaster. Use heat-resistant tape to secure the print's edges to the coaster. The tape can wrap around and secure to the back. Place the taped coaster face up on the cardstock and pressing pad. The design should be facing down. Put a piece of plain white butcher paper on top of the stack. Press it at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 60 seconds without pressure. Allow the coaster to cool for several minutes until they're safe to touch. Project number 4, Cricut Round Ceramic Coasters. The round Cricut coasters are made of ceramic and do not have a cork backing. Now, ceramic tiles are pressed differently, so I'll explain. Set the Easy Press to 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 204 degrees Celsius and set the time to 240 seconds. Yes, that's 4 minutes, so 240 seconds. Use a lint roller to remove any dust or debris from the coaster. The Cricut ceramic round coasters don't need to be preheated either, but the layering is different from the square version. Put a sheet of white cardstock on the pressing pad to catch extra ink and set the round coaster face up on top. Place the sublimation print face down on the coaster and make sure the bleed and extra paper are evenly dispersed around the coaster. Add pieces of heat-resistant tape to secure the design to the coaster. This time, place the stack with the design on the bottom of the cardstock and pressing pad. We'll press this design through the coaster, which is different from the other examples, and this helps avoid scorching the design since it's a long press time. Place a piece of white butcher paper on top of the stack and then press at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 240 seconds with light pressure. That's 4 minutes, 240 seconds. Since we're heating through the ceramic, this longer time will make the transfer more successful. When the time is up, remove the press by lifting it straight up. Allow the coaster to cool for a couple of minutes until it's safe to touch. Then carefully turn it over to remove the blowout paper, tape, and the printed sheet, revealing the design. Step 5. Show it off. Here are what my sublimated winter coasters look like. Didn't they turn out great? So let's compare the coasters. Coasters need to hold up to wear and tear, so we put some test samples through the wringer to see how they did. We left water on some, coffee on others, and left others out in the sun. All things that will probably happen to your coasters, especially the car coasters. I'm overall impressed by how well they held up. I was most concerned that the neoprene car coasters might soak up some of the coffee, but even after I left some on top for 3 days, it came right off with a little dish soap. Some of the neoprene coasters did curl a little, but they should work for quite a while in your car's cup holders. Now, some of the MDF coasters have a little bit of a yellow tint after all of the testing. I wiped them off with plain water because the soap didn't really seem to help. But again, if they're in your car's cup holders doing their job, you probably won't notice it. The Cricut coasters held up the best, even though they're not the same materials. I definitely don't recommend using these in your car, by the way. They won't fit in cup holders, and you don't want them getting jostled around because they're heavier, especially the round ceramic one. But these are great options for protecting your tables at home. They put up with a lot of liquid and stains and wipe clean easily. So, what do you think? Wouldn't these make great gifts? All 4 of the coasters I tested sublimated well and are definitely worth trying on your own. And while the car coasters did show some damage after all of my testing, which I did expect, they're not really meant to remain perfect. That wouldn't really be reasonable of us to think, right? And you can get dozens of them online for a great price. So making backups to swap in isn't too much of an investment. I do like that the neoprene coasters had much less yellow in their background than the MDF ones, so I think I would pick those over the hard car coasters. Now, the Cricut coasters did work with sublimation transfers, just as I expected, so that's awesome. But even though the round ones are ceramic and more sturdy, these sets are the same price. And even though I didn't have any issues in my tests, I've seen some crafters say that the square ones get damaged more easily. So the round ceramic coasters are a bit better in my opinion. Now I hope you learned a lot and have some ideas for your own coaster projects. If you try them out, I'd love for you to post pictures in my Sublimation Facebook group at JenniferMaker.com/sublimation group. Let me know which ones you try and how they turn out. And that's it for today. Until tomorrow, this is Jennifer Maker reminding you to craft a life you love.